Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think the British people will be appalled to learn that Iranian nationals who've come across the English Channel have been charged with terror offences. And I think also they'll be very concerned, Home Secretary, that, the Home Secretary, when in opposition, talked about proscribing the IRGC, but now we've got Jonathan Hall KC sort of recommending a delay in prescribing the IRGC. Surely the right thing to do, Home Secretary, is prescribe them now, and if any more powers are required, introduce that through emergency legislation, but don't kick the can down the road. Yeah.
Well, our border security is national security. That is the approach that this government is taking, and we will continue to strengthen border security, including introducing counter-terrorism powers. I also have repeatedly called on the government to strengthen the legislation. When we were in opposition, called on the previous government to strengthen the legislation in order to be able to take much stronger action on state-backed organisations like the IRGC. The Jonathan Hall report that is out today identifies the legal difficulties and problems in using legislation that was designed for terrorism to apply to state-backed threats. It's important that the legislation, any legislation we apply, is actually effective and doesn't unravel. That's why we put forward, some years ago, in 2023, the Labour Party put forward proposals to strengthen the legislation, to bring in these new, stronger powers that we are now talking about today, in order to be able to use those against organisations that are state-backed, such in the way that the IRGC is. It's because we believe that national security is so important that we are prepared to take the action needed to make sure that the government, the police, the security agencies have the powers they need to take action and to make sure something happens in practice.
Emma Foodie.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for her statement and want to put on record my thanks to those who work day in, day out to keep our streets and communities safe, undertaking work and activities that many of us may never hear about. Can the Home Secretary please provide the assurance that with this government, the police and security services will always have the powers and resources that they need to keep us safe?
My honourable friend is right to talk about the vital work the police and security services, intelligence services do. It is because we so strongly support them that we are now putting forward proposals to strengthen the law, to make sure that they do have the powers that they need at all stages, and so we support them to keep us safe.
Dr Andrew Morrison.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we understand that the 3 individuals concerned entered the country illegally and then claimed asylum. Does the Home Secretary agree that this country is particularly attractive to those who wish to claim asylum, because it is relatively easy to be successful in that endeavour compared with, for example, France? So it makes sense to claim asylum here. Does she attribute any of that to the Human Rights Act? And if so, how does she plan to amend it? And does she have cause for concern that those who are tasked with making decisions sometimes are guilty of overzealous application of the law in respect of asylum?
Well, the 3 individuals that he referred to entered the UK between 2016 and 2022 and were granted asylum. I can tell him that grant rates for asylum have fallen in the last year, and returns of failed asylum seekers have increased. We are also strengthening our border security with counter-terrorism powers, and also strengthening the checks around criminality across the immigration and asylum system.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the Home Secretary for her statement, and also the Security Minister for his written statement last week on the work of the Defending Democracy Task Force. As she'll be aware, the Human Rights Committee are currently conducting a inquiry into transnational repression, which I'm sure she'll look at our findings very carefully. Can I ask whether the State Threats Joint Unit will be working on transnational repression and bringing together cross-party approach so that we can tackle this important issue?
My honourable friend raises an important point. I know the inquiry that his committee is pursuing is very important, and the Security Minister will indeed be giving evidence to that inquiry about the work being done on transnational repression, including on the work by the Defending Democracy Task Force. The Joint State Threats Unit is looking at a wide range of issues about how we tackle the kinds of threats that we face across the country.
Mark Pritchard.
Madam Speaker. As President Trump seeks to negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran, can I ask the Home Secretary whether she could work with Five Eyes partners, indeed senior ministers across government, working with the National Security Council and the National Security Advisor team in the White House to ensure that any nuclear deal is comprehensive, that doesn't exclude ensuring that Iran is not able to continue to work in proxy form, whether through criminal gangs or through other states, in order that we don't have sanctions lifted without further action in areas that she's discussed today.
The honourable member makes an extremely important point. It's essential that Iran is prevented from developing any further nuclear threat, and that is why the US-led talks are so important. We support them very strongly. He is also right that this needs to be a comprehensive approach, and it's something that that is an approach we also agree with across the Five Eyes partners.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I associate myself with the praise for our intelligence, police and security services. I welcome the Home Secretary's statement about the combination of international cooperation and robust action at home, and as also set out previously by the Security Minister. It's critically important, of course, when tackling alleged acts of direct threat to life and property. But does she agree with me that measures such as the enhanced tier of the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme are really important, because we are now seeing increasingly actions by organised criminal gangs and other groups which are an insidious force in our country, and we must deter other states and organisations from the nefarious actions that they're taking.
My honourable friend is right. We are increasingly seeing a pattern where foreign state organisations end up also using criminal proxies to pursue malign activity. And that is why we have to link up the work around serious and organised crime with work around counter-terrorism, with work around state threats. It's combining the different hybrid threats that we now face, which is why the new national security strategy is so important.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Home Secretary, in a statement, said the Iranian regime poses an unacceptable threat to our domestic security, which cannot continue. Yet we know that Iranians make up the third largest group of illegal migrants crossing the Channel. So does the Home Secretary agree with me that any Iranians crossing the Channel should be detained and deported and not allowed to claim asylum?
Yeah.
Well, I would say to the honourable member that I think the system that we inherited from the previous government, including a government that he was at different times a part of, was not strong enough, and that border security needs to be treated as a national security issue. It hasn't been for far too long. That's why we're introducing counter-terrorism style powers as part of our border security response. I'm really sorry that he and his party chose to vote against those counter-terrorism powers repeatedly, because we do need those counter-terrorism powers introduced. It's why we're also strengthening the security and criminality checks across the asylum and immigration system, because we need to make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep our country safe.
David Pinter-Tuchinski.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to start by welcoming the measures my right honourable friend has announced today, and join her in paying tribute to the security services and thank them for keeping us safe. The actions of the last few days underline the profound threat Iran poses to our country. Many of the Iranian community in my constituency in Hendon live in fear of transnational repression. Could my right honourable friend say a bit more about what the government's doing to protect our Iranian community and all those who live in fear of transnational repression, so that they can live lives in freedom in Britain?
Well, my honourable friend is right that transnational repression has become a growing threat and challenge, not just from Iran, but from other countries as well. The Security Minister provided an update to the House just last week on the further actions that we are taking, including further support for those who